Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. My name is Olakunle Kasumu and it's great to be on this show. Once in a while, a book comes out at the right time, addressing current issues. Now, one of the issues we've been talking about in Nigeria is the state of the economy. As you all know, things are so tough for we Nigerians out there, really, really tough. It's a tough economic period for Nigeria. And you hear a lot of conversations around monetary policies. The CBN is a name that is always in every conversation these days. CBN. Well, a former deputy governor of the CBN has written a book that sheds light on the operations of the CBN, monetary policy histories in Nigeria, etc., etc. Tell me, when you meet somebody who spent 40 years of his life in the CBN. I don't know of any, I'm not sure anybody else exists except the special guest we've got on our show this week. Well, let's get to meet with this great gentleman and then be introduced to the book that I consider to be one of the most relevant books of our time. Enjoy this.
Dr. Okwu Nnannas is an economist who served in Central Bank of Nigeria in various capacities. He also served as the Director General of West African Monetary Institute and was a staff economist in the African Department of the International Monetary Fund. Nnanna is a Fellow of Nigerian Economic Society and a Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Bankers. He's a recipient of many awards, including Dr. Kwame Nkrumah Leadership Award. Nnanna, who has over 45 publications to his credit, joins Channel's Book Club to discuss his memoir, Whispering in the Storm.
Dr. Nnanna, nice to have you on Channel's Book Club, sir.
My pleasure for the invitation.
It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Well, Whispering in the Storm, a tale of mission drift and delicate balancing act of the Central Bank of Nigeria. I have to say, first of all, that this is a very relevant book, as you well know, especially considering the things happening in the country, the things that have been happening in the country, economically speaking, now over the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years. This is a must-read book for all economists in the country, and we laymen too.
Thank you very much for that remark.
Okay, but before we dig in, you had about 40 years working at the CBN. That's remarkable. I'm not sure. Is there any other person who has had 40 years at the CBN?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge.
How was that for you?
It must be providence, I would say, because when I graduated from the University of Houston in America, my intention was to come and teach in the university or tertiary institution in Nigeria. That was my call. That was my love, actually. I didn't intend to come and work in the Central Bank of Nigeria. But Providence had it. In those days, it was days when Nigeria was very, very forceful about brain drain. They wanted every Nigerian educated outside Nigeria to come back home and contribute. And yours truly was among the Nigerian graduates who, despite the opportunity they had to stay outside Nigeria, came back. We came back to answer the call, and my country treated me well. I must be proud of Nigeria. I must say that. I came back, and they gave me all the opportunity.
And that was the beginning of your 40 years?
It was.
40 years is incredible. I mean, 40 years?
Yes.
So you
before you were born, I suppose.
No. That was, I think I was around, very much around.
Okay.
Okay. You have a bird's eye view of Nigeria from an economic perspective.
Yes.
I assume so, from somebody who spent 40 years in the CBN, and the person who wrote this eye-popping book. before we dig into specifics in your book, looking at Nigeria now, I'm very keen on getting an insight into the way you look at Nigeria now, especially with that background of 40 years, right at the center of policies that shaped Nigeria for decades. When you look at Nigeria now, how do you feel? Do you feel we didn't get it right, and how do you feel if you look at Nigeria now, given that background?
Very good question. Very, very good question. We have not failed, but we could have done better. We have made progress rather slowly. Because there's no point repeating mistakes of the past. Because you are doomed to repeat the same mistake. And there will be a case of one step forward, two steps backward. Our story is a story of faulty leadership. Faulty leadership. And my prayer is that we should get it right one day. We get a forthright leader who will be incisive, decisive, and above all, patriotic. To put the square peg in the square hole and make sure that our institutions of integrity will not be undermined. So my regret is that the leadership question is still to be solved. We haven't solved it yet. We haven't got it right.
Okay, let's that's really thought-provoking. Let's dive in here. I'm sure you'll be able to express more as per that question as we discuss your book, Whispering in the Storm. I would like you to introduce this to viewers, who are wondering, what's this about? Whispering in the Storm. It's your memoir, but please introduce it.
The title is sort of a metaphor, whispering in the storm. I remember there's a page where I said, at the height of the political soundbite, we were all talking across purposes in the Monetary Policy Committee. Everybody holding to their views. It was a dialogue of the deaf. Nobody was listening to anybody. And if you're whispering and there's a hailstorm blowing, nobody hears you. But one day somebody will hear you. And what you said will re-echo. And then they will say, oh God, I wish we listened. So that is where I took the title. If I'm not mistaken, page 211 or something, where I remarked that in the political order of the day, nobody heard anybody. It's like whispering when the storm is blowing. The storm has to die down before they will know what you've been saying.
If you whisper in the storm, nobody will hear you.
Nobody will hear you.
Interesting.
So that is where I took the title.
Yeah.
He was whispering in the storm. The drift had commenced.
So what you set out to do here, sir, if I may get us back to that question, is to... It's a memoir. Like I always tell people, a memoir is different from an autobiography, and clearly this is a memoir.
Yes.
So you picked on your story. Your CBN experience is central to this story, as anybody will expect.
Sure.
Anybody who hears you spend 40 years in CBN will expect your memoir to be a lot about CBN, which is what it's about.
It is.
If I may, chapter 1 is my mentor. Chapter 2 is the second-tier forex market. Chapter 3, the changing structure of the CBN. Chapter 4, time Inconsistent Fiscal and Monetary Policy. Chapter 5, The Beginning of the End. Chapter 6, Moral Suasion, The Exit of Governor Joseph Sanusi. Chapter 7, The Beginning of Mission Drift. Chapter 8, The CBN Act 2007, and so on. So I like the fact that I thought I would see here in chapter 1 what you have in chapter 17. My primary school education.
Yes.
Followed by my secondary school education.
Yes.
But you flipped, and I believe that was deliberate.
It was deliberate.
Deliberate.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I like the things you wrote. I like the way you wrote in the sense that, for me as a reader, I saw a lot of insightful things, and I saw a lot of what some of we readers like to call grapevine gists. We just love those kinds of gists. I mean, you as a writer, as a professional, I'm pretty sure you were not out to offer gists. You were just out to tell the story. But for us, we like those behind the curtain experiences. You wrote about when you met former President Buhari, when you met Abacha, when you met IBB, when you met Obasanjo and the likes. Can you please share with us some of the things that people will find in this book as a form of providing teasers for them? I'm sure somebody will be eager to get his or her hands on this. Can you share a few things that they'll find in this book?
When I was a younger bureaucrat, entering the Nigerian bureaucracy afresh, those we met in the system more or less frightened us that when you're before the big man, you better keep your mouth shut. Listen, because they know exactly what you are going to tell them. But in the course of my career, it became apparent that the big men, or the so-called big men in quote, wanted to hear from you. They see you as the expert. Tell them the truth. And if we are open to our big men, tell them the truth. Where the shoe pinches in the body economy, they will listen to you. But if they chose not to, it's their problem, not your problem anymore. When I joined the institution called the Central Bank of Nigeria, and I must say it's one of the best institutions in Nigeria, and I pray it continues to remain the institution of record. It's a place where foreigners who want to do business in Nigeria come first calling, and the place they knock when they are going. I had the opportunity to be among the top echelon, even though I was small in terms of hierarchy. But my boss, they admired me for one thing: integrity and frankness. The ability to say it as it is. When I had the opportunity, I told the truth. Our economy was declining in 1982. But nobody wanted to say it.
You wrote that the Naira had been fixed.
Yes.
And that was a wrong move.
It was a wrong move. So we can't defend it. There's no way we can defend it. Do what other countries are doing. Manage it. Intervene when you can, using demand management instruments. Don't fix. If you fix it, you are creating more problems for yourselves.
Do you find it ironic that the governments that fixed it, well, maybe not originally, but insisted on fixing it, many decades later, the same leadership was selling the same idea? Do you find that interesting, ironic?
It's ironic, indeed. It is ironic indeed. But it was due to circumstance. Why do you want to be pushed to do what is right? You become what I call being time inconsistent.
Was pushed by circumstance?
Yes.
In 1983?
In 1983, when they were fixing it, the Naira hasn't gone to the dogs, so to speak.
When it was fixed in 1983, of course,
Yes.
the Naira was not,
Yes, what it was going.
Was going. Okay.
But the important thing in Nigeria is that monetary policy seems to be blamed as the cause of our economic deterioration. To me, the answer is not monetary policy. The problem is fiscal policy.
Fiscal policy.
Yes.
You wrote that in 1983, thereabouts, when Naira was fixed, you wrote that the purpose for fixing it was, there were ulterior motives to fixing the Naira then. Do you still hold the same view? That's what you wrote here.
Well, the ulterior motive may not be as blatant as some people may think. But the question is, why fix when you know you don't have the resources to fix? To fix it implies that you have supply elasticity. More dollar will come. And then I will tell you, if you give me 100 Naira, I'll give you $1. Or if you give me 2 Naira, I will give you $1 or £1, as the case may be. But when the dollar wasn't coming, because you couldn't sell your commodity, the price of oil has fallen. So why fix?
Let me read from page 20 what you wrote. As a historical backdrop, it should be recalled that the Nigerian pound was pegged at par.
Yes.
With the pound sterling, with the objective to encourage convertibility and promote trade between Nigeria and the United Kingdom.
That's what the bureaucrats will tell you.
That's what the bureaucrats will tell you. But, you wrote, this policy was not as altruistic as it was meant to portray.
That's true.
The unspoken ulterior motive was to encourage capital flight.
Indeed.
The policy encouraged the majority of Nigerian civil servants to become beneficiaries of government-subsidized home ownership in the United Kingdom because of the misaligned exchange rate regime. Furthermore, Nigeria unwittingly became very dependent on imported goods and services from Britain. Even with you retired, it's still a bit risky writing all this, right? As a bureaucrat for 40 years, you don't see all this.
Well,
but it was the reality.
it was the truth. It was the truth. Nigerians who own buildings in UK wouldn't have done so if the Naira-pound exchange rate was properly aligned. Because it would take them almost a lifetime to save Naira to be able to have equivalent dollar or pound to buy property overseas. But 1-to-1, if you pay me 20,000 Naira, it's 20,000 pounds. How much the house is going for in Britain in those days? Okay, so the point here is that we can't be fighting our nose to place our face.
Okay, again, I'll read, you then expressed this view before the then president of Nigeria, General Buhari. And there were people concerned about how, quote and unquote, assertively you expressed this view with him. Can you share a bit of that? Because that's one of the juicy gists in your book.
From what I know now, my experience and encounter with the general in Udam Barracks in 1983, I would have been more circumspect. Well, thank God. It's the way ignorance is bliss. It is fully to be wise. I don't know why late Governor Abdul Qadir Ahmed chose me and my senior colleague, Mr. Victor Odozi, to go and brief him. Immediately he took over government. When I went there, I was a young man from the United States of America, graduated from the University of Houston, was teaching in my alma mater in a graduate school. And I decided to come back home. After the call of duty, I came back home. And I was asked to go and brief him. Then we used to have a book called the Green Book, where we meticulously write out what the problem facing the macroeconomy as seen by the central bank and what should be done to do the things right. So Victor and I were chosen by late Governor Ahmed to go and brief him at the Dodan Barrack and tell him CBN perspective. Late Governor Ahmed was a gentleman par excellence. He said, go talk to him. Tell him frankly, be as frank as possible. I was too frank. I was too honest. And I told him, especially when he said he wanted to introduce price control.
Price control, yeah.
I said, no, sir. No, you cannot. He was still talking, I interrupted him. That even was terrible. My senior colleague kicked my leg. We were sitting close. But before he kicked my leg for me to take caution, I've already blurted it out. I said, you cannot introduce price control in Nigeria, it won't work.
You ruin things.
I said, not even in regimented China, price control didn't work. And it won't work here. I know I overshot my limit. And General Buhari, then he was a young man, smartly dressed, he said, it will work. Take it from me, it will work.
Well, with the benefits of
hindsight,
we know who was right and who was wrong. So we are running out of time. So
Okay.
there's so many things I would have liked you to say. But there were a lot of other experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But as a summary, what's the most important take-home you would like a reader to have after going through this? What's for you? What would delight you if a reader takes from this book this particular thing? What would that then be?
My belief is that going forward, the institution called the Central Bank of Nigeria, the monetary authority, should be kept as independent as it could be.
Independent.
Independent. It's a monetary authority. Should be independent. The governor should be a man of character, impeccable character. He shouldn't be somebody who will go there to ingratiate himself or herself to the powers that be. And if that, to get it right, let us guarantee him or her one term of office. I recommended 7 years. So he will go there and do what is right in those 7 years and get out. And I recommended the separation of the office of the governor from that of the chairman of the board of directors. The governor should not be made the chairman. The governor should not be made the chairman of the board of directors. He should be a separate person. That's my recommendation.
Dr. Joseph Nnanna, thank you for joining us on Channels Book Club. It's been nice having this discussion with you. Whispering in the Storm, fantastic book. And I'm sure with everything you said today, viewers out there will be eager to find copies of your book and read. Thank you for joining us.
A pleasure to come here, and I'll make sure that the books are distributed in the major bookstores across the country. And I shall find a way to put it in, maybe in Amazon.
Amazon, okay.
So they can also source it. It's an eye-opener.
It is.
So we don't repeat what we've been doing over the decades. Because they say a sure sign of madness is for one person to be doing something over and over and over and expect a different result. No.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
The honor is ours.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So much packed in there by Dr. Joseph Okwu Nnannas. Well, 40 years in the CBN is absolutely no joke at all, and you could sense so much experience there in that conversation. Until you read Whispering in the Storm, you will not know how much is packed. You know, one of the things I've learned over the years is Nigeria, we have our solutions in a lot of books written by a lot of great people across this country. We just need to dig in there. Like somebody said, solving the problems of the future can be found in the books about the past. So Whispering in the Storm is one like that. Get your hands on it, especially those who manage the economy in Nigeria. You need to read that book. Very important. This is where we have to end the show today. As always, we'll be delighted to get your feedback through any of our social media platforms displayed on your screen. My name is Olakunle Kasumu. Remember, one great book can change your life. Bye-bye.